Last week, I got to play not only Pokemon Legends Z to A, but also Kirby Air Riders, and today we're going to talk all about it. You see, last week was Gamescom, and this is the biggest gaming convention in the entire world. And it's held every single year in the same place, which is Cologne. And I cannot stress enough when I say this event is absolutely massive. And this brings in not only PlayStation, Xbox, but this year Nintendo also made an appearance. And historically, Nintendo tend to come to these events with mostly just games that you can already play. And whilst this was true, as this saw not only Mario Kart World, but also Donkey Kong be playable at the event itself, they also brought Kirby Air Riders and Pokemon Legends Z to A. So of course, I played both of them. Now, the first game I want to talk about is Pokemon Legends Z to A. Now, I should probably mention before we get into this that I absolutely love Pokemon Legends Arceus. And I fell in love with it because it was just so much fun to play. And I actually still, to this day, haven't actually finished the main storyline because I've been so busy running around, shiny hunting, and exploring that I just never got around to it, even though I've played well over 70 hours at this point. So I've been eagerly anticipating a sequel ever since. And even though this is still a Legends game, it does a lot of things very differently. Now, this demo was broken up into two parts. The first part was more or less learning how to battle, as battles in this game are done very differently, and the second part was all about mega evolutions. Now, the first part of the demo not only taught you how to battle, which is done in real time instead of it being turn-based like in every other Pokemon game, but it also taught you a little bit about how this game is going to work. Because in Pokemon Legends Z to A, battling is mainly done at night. And if you enter into a battle zone and another trainer sees you, you will immediately start to fight them. Now, they did add a brand new mechanic to this, which is if you sneak up on your opponent, you'll actually get a slight advantage at the beginning of the battle, where their Pokemon will be too stunned to attack. But this also means the same is true for you, and if another trainer spots you before you spot them, then you'll be in the battle with a disadvantage. And I do like the idea that this means that you'll be going into battle zones with the idea of trying to stealth around them and sneak up on as many trainers as possible. And in this game, the whole point of battling is to try and raise your league level, with every single battle you win giving you more points that sees you hopefully rise from rank Z all the way up to rank A. And one of the things they made super clear to me in the demo was that this will kind of start to push you to use moves that you typically might not have used in previous Pokemon games. And the moves I'm talking about are the ones that do no damage whatsoever. And even though these are commonly used in competitive, people like me tend to just forget all about them. But these battles are pretty different. And I think the first thing that's really obvious is how the menus have kind of been streamlined. You use the D-pad to switch between each of your different Pokemon, and then you use the buttons like X, A, B, and Y to select which attack you want to do, with each attack having its very own cooldown depending on what sort of attack it is. But the thing that really makes this different isn't just the real-time strategy aspect, but is also the fact that you can be attacked as well as your Pokemon. So not only do you have to pick the right time to use each of your Pokemon moves, you'll also need to be on the ball with dodging yourself so you don't get knocked out before your Pokemon does. Now, they do also have this status window here where you can see if attacks are super effective or not, if you're not too sure. And I think the best way to describe this is it just feels like a little bit more realistic. This is how Pokemon battle on the Pokemon TV show, and it's kind of cool to see that in the game itself. And for someone who's played a fair amount of Pokemon before, this did seem relatively okay to pick up and play and get my head around. That was until we took on the Mega Evolution battle, because the second half of the demo actually had me go up against Mega Absol. And from the looks of it, fighting these, what they call rogue mega evolutions, is going to be one of the big parts of the main storyline. Now, this battle is a little bit different as it doesn't really happen in the confines of the city itself and kind of happens in its very own area. And this was a fierce reminder that not only does your Pokemon need to dodge attacks, but so do you, as the Mega Evolution Pokemon will be targeting both of you. Now, I will say these mechanics felt maybe a little bit more clunkier than I was expecting, and that's because you can't lock on the Mega Evolution and dodge yourself at the same time. I personally think it would have been nice to at least have the option to remain locked on when you're dodging so that you don't have to rely so much on your own camera movements, just to help those of us who are a bit more motion sick. So I thought that was a little bit of an odd decision in these big battles. Now, in the cutscene before you start this Mega Evolution battle, you not only get lent the Pokemon Lucario, but you also get lent the wristband that allows you to Mega Evolve. And the way this works in the battle is that you have to fill up this gauge here, and once it's full, your Pokemon can Mega Evolve. And this can happen multiple times during the battle. And in order for you to fill your Mega Evolution gauge, you need to collect these orbs on the ground, which you get whenever you attack the Pokemon. So this means it's your job in these battles to not only select the moves for your Pokemon to use, dodge the attacks that come at you, but also collect the orbs that come off of the Pokemon, which can be a little bit much at first. And this doesn't even stop when your Pokemon Mega Evolves, because if you keep on picking up those orbs in the Mega Evolution, your Pokemon will stay in that state for even longer. Now, I did also get to see a cutscene when I was playing the demo, and as expected, there is no voice acting in this whatsoever. There's also no proper cutscenes like we see in other Nintendo games. It is just the same old that you expect in a Pokemon franchise game. There was one particularly hilarious part in the demo where you get to look up the side of the building to see something on the top of it, and the building is completely flat. Like, the balconies, they don't stick out at all, the railings don't stick out. It just looked so odd to see, and considering the fact that this entire game takes part in a city, it is a little bit disappointing to see most of the buildings looking just like this. It is also worth noting at this point that everything you see so far was captured and shown on the Nintendo Switch 2. So as of this moment, I don't know how much visually that's going to differ from the Switch version, but just something to bear in mind. I wish I got to see more in the daytime of being able to run around and capture Pokemon and less of just the battling side of things, because if I'm being completely honest, this is probably the thing that interests me the least in a Legends game. I think though my biggest worry is the fact that this takes place in a city. I really love the open areas of Pokemon Legends Arceus, and I just don't know if this city is going to feel big enough. I really didn't get to explore much whatsoever. I got to go down 2 tiny little roads. So I'm worried this will feel maybe a little bit claustrophobic at times, but for that we're just going to have to wait and see more trailers or more gameplay footage to see how they handle this. Overall though, the 30-minute demo was fun. I really hope shiny hunting is as much fun as it was in Arceus, and I can't wait to get my hands on it sometime in October. The next game we're going to talk about though is Kirby Air Riders. Now for this, I was lucky enough to get invited to Nintendo's secret area in Gamescom, which meant that I was allowed to play 30 minutes of Kirby Air Riders instead of just the 10 minutes that you got in the main Gamescom floor. Now, despite the fact that I owned a GameCube as a kid, I have actually never played a Kirby Air Riders game before. And up until last week, I genuinely had no idea what to expect whatsoever. Now, the Kirby Air Riders Direct actually happened one day before I got to play the game for myself. And this demo, again, was split into 2 separate parts. The first part was just doing all the tutorials about how to actually play, followed by doing a little bit of racing. And the second part was actually getting into playing what I think is the main mode of the game, which is City Trial. Now, unfortunately, even though I got to play the game for myself, I had no way to properly record my time with the game. So that means that anytime where you see the gameplay and I'm not in it when it's full screen, this isn't footage that I took. So please don't mistake me for someone who was good at this game. I crashed so often, but the footage gives you a better idea of how the game actually looks than what I filmed myself. So we're going to do a bit of both. Now, the tutorial segments were very much needed, as despite the way it may initially look, I don't think this plays all that similarly to Mario Kart, mainly because the button binds are just completely different. Now, the tutorial itself starts off with the very basics, which is needed because if you play this like Mario Kart, you're going to run into some issues very early on. First of all, you don't need to hold a button down in order for you to drive. It just automatically does that for you. The drifting is also very different. Not only is it not one of the shoulder buttons, and it's now the B button, which in itself takes a while to get used to. The way in which you drift as well feels very different from the Mario Kart mechanics. So again, will take a little bit of getting used to if you've been playing a lot of it. The other thing that's very different is how the characters work. So in Mario Kart, the way the racing works is that you get items and then you can use those items to attack other players, to overtake them, and hopefully get in first place. In Kirby Air Riders though, things are violent in a slightly different way, as your rider can attack the other riders in a couple of different ways. Firstly, you have the standard spin attack, which you can do by moving the right hand stick. Kirby also has the ability to suck in other players to take their powers, and each of the different characters have their own style of doing this as well. And then finally, you have each character's special move. And this is definitely where I started noticing more of the Smash Bros elements, with not only every character having their own unique special move, but also every single skin of each of the characters. And this is the part to me that really showcases how this is maybe more like Smash than it is to being like Mario Kart. So even though there aren't that many characters to begin with, although if this is similar to Smash, there might be new characters added in over time, but there is actually a lot more to each character than it might appear at first. The final thing the tutorial covered was gliding, and again, this is different to Mario Kart. You see, when you glide in Kirby Air Riders, the goal is to try and land your rider as parallel as you can to the surface you're landing on, and the more parallel that it is, the bigger the boost you get when you land. The final thing that I really liked was the way that they tried to help the players at the back catch up to the players at the front without the use of items. You see, in Kirby Air Riders, the way you get a little bit of a boost if you're behind is you get to ride in the trails of all of the other people in front of you. Because whenever you drive your rider, you leave a little trail of stars behind you. And if you drive through those stars, you'll get a speed boost. And the more characters that leave these trails, the bigger the boost is, and the easier it is to try and catch up to the players at the front. Now, even though the racing itself was fun and felt different from the likes of Mario Kart just enough, the racing really isn't the main mode for Kirby Air Riders. It is this mode called City Trial. Now, I'm going to be honest, I truly don't think even after a 30-minute demo of this that I truly have gotten my head around this mode, but I'm going to give it the best shot that I have. So this mode is like a battle royale, but with racing karts instead of just fighting. So this mode begins with you having 5 minutes to try and upgrade your car as much as possible. And this involves going around this sandboxy like map to try and find these little symbols dotted around the map. And each of these symbols gives you a boost to a certain attribute of your cart, and you can even change your cart completely if you see another one by jumping on it and getting rid of your own. And this part of the game is truly chaos, because this is in fact a 16-person mode, and all of the other players are also driving around the same map that you are. And if you see another player, you'll be able to attack them to try and get more bonuses for yourself. And what adds another element of chaos to this is just how fast your cart can get when you're running around this mode. And if that doesn't sound chaotic enough, there's more. You see, throughout the 5 minutes that you have to try and upgrade your cart, you'll also have these things called map events. I think these events range massively, and I only got to see a few of them. For me, it was a giant thing that was in the map that you had to attack, and once it was successfully beaten, it dropped a ton of really useful upgrades. But you're also surrounded by other players who are trying to do the same thing as you, so it became a sort of like Hunger Games situation. So you had to decide if it was worth risking it to go into the middle and get all of the rewards, but also potentially have your rider destroyed in the process. Or you could simply just watch the chaos unfold in front of you. Now, it was said in the Nintendo Direct that you should pick your upgrades carefully. And I'm gonna be honest, my cart was going so fast, I didn't have the ability to really compute what on earth was going on at any moment in time. So I couldn't really curate my cart, I just sort of hoped for the best. But in theory, once you start getting better at this, you can really pick and fine tune what kind of cart you want. As often, having large upgrades in one area will come with a negative effect on one of the other attributes, so you need to think about it carefully. But again, I didn't think about anything, it was just head empty and try not to crash. That being said, there weren't any real negative repercussions of crashing into walls or things like that, because even if your cart was attacked to the point where it blew up, you would only lose some of the bonuses that you'd gathered and not all of them. And you'd have to run around, find a new cart and get going once again, which I really liked as someone who, again, kind of didn't know what they were doing in some of it, but was having a great time while they were doing it. Now, this is only the first half of this mode. You see, after the 5 minutes are over, you then need to use your cart for a racing mode. Now, you get given the choice of 4 different modes to try and take on. And the game will actually recommend you a certain mode based on the attributes of the cart you just made. And once you selected the mode that's best for you and your cart, you then go on to race against the other players to try and win. Now, I say races, but actually not all of these modes are races. Some of them are more battle-like, some of them are more skilled-like, and I really do like this variation into what you can use your cart for. Now, sadly, we didn't get to play this mode with the full amount of people, as I think this would be even more chaos if we did. But somehow I did walk away as the winner for both of the modes that we got to play, which was a little surprising since I still was not sure what on earth I was doing and frequently found myself pressing the wrong buttons as I was trying to play this like Mario Kart. I think this game can be good for mindless fun, although I wouldn't necessarily say it is as beginner friendly as the likes of Mario Kart, but I also think there is a lot to master and a lot of mechanics going on at once. That means if you get really into it, there is probably a really high skill ceiling for this game. So I'm going to be really interested to see what the online modes are like for a game like this, as we've seen for Mario Kart, it can make or break this sort of game. I think the biggest thing we can hope for is that Nintendo give us a free demo for this game, as I think it's something that a lot of people will want to try before they buy, especially if they already own Mario Kart. But I realistically don't think that most people will see themselves owning multiple racing games, especially considering the Sonic racing game is also coming out sometime in September, which means that Kirby Air Riders is going to be our 3rd racing game of the year. And although I did have a lot of fun with it, I obviously can't tell at this moment whether I think it's actually going to be worth the price or not. That's something which we can only really figure out once it releases, we see all of the different types of modes, and whether this is a game that's going to get constant updates like Smash got, or if it's a sort of one and done situation. Either way, those are my thoughts on Pokemon and Kirby Air Riders. I will have another video